Welcome to the TOEFL Listening section. In this section, you will listen to an academic lecture and then answer questions about what you heard. You may take notes while you listen. You will have time to review your notes before answering the questions. Listen to part of a lecture in a university class. You will hear the lecture only once, so listen carefully. After the lecture, you will answer some questions about what you heard. Some questions ask about the main ideas and supporting details. Other questions ask you to make inferences or connections between ideas. Answer each question based on what is stated or implied in the lecture.
Good morning. Today we will examine the social and economic impacts of the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th centuries. We will focus on how industrialization transformed labor, urban life, class structures, and public policy. The Industrial Revolution began with mechanization in textile production and improvements in steam power. These technological changes did not exist in a vacuum. They restructured economies by creating a factory system that concentrated production, capital, and workers in new ways. Take the textile mills of Lancashire and the city of Manchester. Manchester became an illustrative case because it concentrated cotton spinning and weaving into large-scale factories. That concentration produced rapid capital accumulation and a new urban working class. One economic impact was the shift from artisanal production to wage labor. Skilled artisans who had worked in small workshops now faced mechanized machines that separated tasks. Employers sought labor that could be supervised and timed. The result was a growth in wage dependency and a decline in traditional household-based production. Socially, the consequences were stark. Urbanization accelerated as rural workers migrated to factory towns. Overcrowding, inadequate sanitation, and the rapid expansion of slums created public health crises. Contemporary observers describe these changes as disruptive to family routines and community networks. Child labor is an important example. Factories employed children because they were cheap and could handle small tasks. Growing public concern about working conditions contributed to legislative responses. The British Factory Act of 1833 limited the hours that children could work and required some schooling. Another significant economic effect was the formation of distinct social classes. Wealthy industrialists and financiers formed a growing middle class that invested in infrastructure and industry. Meanwhile, the urban proletariat lived with low wages and precarious employment. This widening inequality fostered political movements advocating reform. Labor organization emerged in response. Early trade unions and movements like Chartism demanded political representation and improved labor rights. These movements illustrate how workers sought to transform their economic position into political influence. We must also consider cultural impacts. Time discipline became important. Factory whistles and clocking systems imposed regimented work hours. Punctuality and the measurement of work in hours altered perceptions of time and productivity. When I say that the factory system created a new temporal discipline for workers, I mean that time became a commodity measured by wages and the clock. Resistance to these changes took several forms. Skilled workers sometimes sabotaged machinery, a phenomenon associated with the Luddites. Middle-class reformers campaigned for sanitation and education. Those responses show that industrialization generated both conflict and innovation. Economic geography changed as well. Coal and iron-producing regions gained importance because they fed industrial machinery. Port cities expanded because they were critical for raw material import and finished goods export. This reorientation of regional economies had long-term consequences for national development. Finally, the industrial transformation stimulated legal and institutional change. Banking and corporate forms adapted to support large-scale enterprises. Public policy evolved to address urban problems and to regulate labor. These institutional shifts helped stabilize and reproduce industrial growth. In summary, industrialization reshaped economic production by creating the factory system and wage labor. It reorganized social life through urbanization, class stratification, changes in family labor, and new time regimes. Understanding these impacts helps us see why historians describe the period as a profound restructuring of society and economy. Next time, we will analyze regional variations in these impacts and examine primary sources from factory inspectors and social reformers. For now, reflect on how technology and institutions interacted to produce both growth and social strain.
Listen again to part of the lecture, then answer the question.
When I say that the factory system created a new temporal discipline for workers, I mean that time became a commodity measured by wages and the clock.
This concludes the listening section. For more TOEFL practice tests and study materials, visit Spinta.org.